Welcome back to Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets on the Mayo Media Network for Wednesday, December 8th. Massive night with some great hockey yesterday, and despite there being less games on the slate today, we should have just as entertaining of a night. Every game is good. Every game has some great offensive options, some great storylines to follow, so it should be a great night of hockey. As always, if you could like, rate, and review this wherever you are listening or watching it, and if you are on YouTube, please leave a comment. Really helps the show out and would be greatly appreciated. On to the first of the four games on the night. We have the Philadelphia Flyers at plus 140 on DraftKings Sportsbook. They're in New Jersey. The New Jersey Devils are minus 160. Keep in mind, as always, I am recording this the day before, so the lines may change by the time you're listening to this or by the time you're looking to place your bets. But this is what I got to go off of, so that's what we have. So we got Philly and New Jersey. Philly's given up 14 goals in their past two games. They're just not getting any saves from their goalies. They're in a funk. They fired the coach. They're trying everything. They have had some tough games lately, with the last two against Tampa Bay and Colorado, two very strong Stanley Cup contenders. So it's not a big deal to lose those games. It's just a matter of how they've been losing it. Martin Jones last night gave up 7, his worst game as a Flyer by far. But I mean, when you're the Philadelphia Flyers, you signed Martin Jones to be your backup in the offseason. You had to know this was coming. This is how he's played 4 years. Shouldn't have been a shock. Shouldn't have been a surprise. That's just what you get with Martin Jones. Carter Hart's going to get the start tonight. It's an easier matchup against New Jersey. They did lose to these Devils last week. I think it was 5-2. But like I said, they fired their coach since, revamped the lines a little bit. New Jersey also isn't playing that well. They lost to Ottawa in a shootout in their last game. Ottawa gives up a ton of scoring chances. New Jersey only generated 23 shots in that game or something like that. Not creating a ton, so this is a good chance for Philadelphia to not allow 7 goals and have a chance to actually grab a win. I love Claude Giroux here. He had 2 goals against Colorado last game. He's put on a new line with Morgan Frost and James Van Riemsdyk. They carried the play pretty well against Colorado. In fact, that was probably the biggest bright spot for me watching that game, was the play of Giroux and Morgan Frost. They have nice chemistry. They had great chemistry a little bit last year when they played together. Frost, a recent call-up. He's playing well. He's got a couple assists in the last few games. I love that line. They're super cheap on DraftKings. That's where I think Philadelphia is going to go to win this game. New Jersey just isn't getting a ton of offense either, as I mentioned before. You can't get it against Ottawa. You're not going to get it against many teams. Philadelphia's main issue is more goaltending than overall defense. So if Carter Hart can limit the damage to 3 goals against, I do think that Philly will take this win. At plus 140 on the money line, I think they're absolutely worth it, despite being on the road, despite being on an 8-game losing streak. All the signs point away from Philadelphia. I'm betting the Flyers on the money line here, counting on the captain to have a big night. Claude Giroux on DraftKings, Claude Giroux to score. It's going to be a great game, despite the fact that these two teams have struggled lately. Next game is in New York. We got Colorado, fresh off their drubbing of the Flyers, 7-5 win. And in New York, Rangers are plus 120. They played in Chicago last night. I am recording this before that game, so I don't know for sure what happened there. Early money line is Colorado minus 140, Rangers plus 120. I don't know if that's going to change. I would assume with goaltending news it will. I have no idea who's starting for either team. Georgiev got the start in Chicago. Igor Shesterkin, that's the biggest thing for the Rangers, if he can be back ready to play. He did suffer an injury about a week ago and is kind of just working his way back. On a back-to-back, I don't know if they're going to go back to Georgiev if Shesterkin's not ready, if they play their AHL call-up, or if Igor's ready to go. So I won't place a bet on this game until I know who's starting in net for them. As for Colorado, it doesn't really matter who's in net for them. Justice Noonan, the guy is like 21. He gave up 5 goals to the Flyers. He gave up a couple goals in relief to Ottawa in their loss there. He's not playing very well. Jonas Johansson isn't playing very well. That's a situation where it's similar to Martin Jones in Philadelphia. You sign this guy, you know what you're getting. He's never been good. He's always been bad. Expecting him to all of a sudden be good and make saves is insane. Until Colorado gets Darcy Kemper back, the over is going to be the play in almost all their games, as it probably is here. Right now it's minus 120 for over 6 goals. I am going to look probably at over 7.5 if I can find an adjusted line on that, or even over 6.5. I try to find plus money on totals. I don't bet them a lot. But Colorado games are going over like crazy right now. They create a ton of offense and they give up a ton of offense. Darcy Kemper, even when he does come back, he hasn't been great for Colorado. He is their best option by far, but they need something more out of him. I'm not sure when he's going to be back, but for this game, it's just going to be tough goaltending on both sides unless Shesterkin is healthy and ready to go. The Colorado offensive options are fantastic. They lead the way with Cale Makar on defense. He's been great. all year, but even better lately with Devin Taves back on his pairing. Taves missed the start of the year with injury. Those two back together are playing really well together. Great offensive contributions from both, but especially Makar. He had a nice goal the other night against Philly. 1-on-4, he went around everybody and scored a goal. The way he skates, he's so much faster than anybody. It doesn't even look like he's trying, but he just blows by everybody. He's probably the best skater in the league outside of Connor McDavid. Unreal player, creates a ton of offense. And beyond that, they got their forwards, their first line, Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, Mikko Rantanen. Tons of expected goals lately, playing really well. Second line, Nazem Kadri, Andrei Burakovsky, Valery Nichushkin, creating a ton of offense as well. They're a little cheaper on DraftKings, especially the two wingers. Both really strong options to go to. Depending on goaltending for New York, I will be going to those guys a lot on DraftKings. There's only 4 games, so there's not a ton of options. They will be popular. And then on the other end, until Colorado shores things up defensively, you got to target opposing offenses as well. Panarin, Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, all these guys are playing well. Kreider and Zibanejad play out together on one line, and then Strome plays with Artemi Panarin. They do kind of mix the wingers around. Capo Cackle's played on both lines. Dryden Hunt's played on both lines lately. So check to see which winger is playing where beforehand. Make your full stacks. Colorado is a great team to target. Then on the back end, New York's one of the only teams in the league that has an almost comparable answer to Cale Makar with Adam Fox. He doesn't have the straight end speed like Makar, but he can make guys miss. He's really shifty around the blue line. Really strong offensive player. Both of these guys should be close to a point per game on the year as defensemen. Super impressive, super important for these teams that those guys create offense. Next game is in Vancouver. Vancouver took advantage of the new coach bump against Los Angeles on Monday with a 4-0 win over the Kings. We only have 1 game of data with them under Bruce Boudreau, but he seemed to roll his top 3 offensive lines pretty evenly, which kind of makes sense with how the game went and how the lines were laid out. They had JT Miller with Brock Besser on one line, Pettersson and Garland playing together, Bo Horvat with Tanner Pearson. So those 3 lines are kind of equal offensively. They rolled them all. The 4th line got much less ice time, as they should. Correct coaching decision. Bruce Boudreau always going to get the best out of his offensive players. Besser scored for the first time in a while. Connor Garland kept scoring. I think the other one, JT Miller, scored on the power play. So a couple power play goals. Some guys that they need to have scoring did get the goals. So that's important for Vancouver going forward. But now they play Boston. Boston's a really good defensive team, albeit one without great goaltending, so they can be taken advantage of. Brad Marchand coming back to the Bruins is huge. They played really well without him, but Marchand on that top line, it allows Taylor Hall to go back on the second line. It just gives them a really deep offense. Really strong defense. Charlie McAvoy hopefully back for the Bruins is in this game as well. Boston is the better team. Boston is the deserving favorite in this game. But I honestly think the line's fair with Vancouver having home ice advantage, Vancouver getting the new coach bump. Plus 135 is a fair number for them. Minus 155 is a fair number on the Bruins, so I don't think I'll bet the game unless that number changes. Last game of the night. Should be an excellent game between 2 strong teams. We got the Dallas Stars. 7 wins in a row, yet they're plus money, plus 115 in Vegas. Vegas Golden Knights minus 135. Like I said, Dallas has won 7 in a row. They're clearly vibing right now. Vegas is getting healthier every game. William Karlsson was the most recent guy to return, so now the 2 major issues for Vegas are they're missing Jack Eichel. They're missing Alec Martinez on the back end, but they are getting close to their full lineup. Karlsson hopped back on his regular line with Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchessault last game. Played really well. Max Pacioretty scored as usual, keeps taking a ton of shots on net. I don't love targeting Dallas for shot props. They do limit shots against pretty well most nights, but Pacioretty is a guy that seems to take 5, 6, 7, 8 shot attempts every single night. I'm going to wait to see what the line is. He's almost always a slam dunk for me, but in this matchup, if the line is 3.5 and it's minus 150 or worse, I might not take it. Other than that, as usual, Max Pacioretty is a full send on the shot prop every night. Dallas has a few lines rolling as well. Rupe Hintz, Joe Pavelski, Jason Robertson, they're scoring every single night. Usually in the first minute, gives Dallas a lead. Dallas is really tough to play against when they have the lead. Second line, Jamie Benn, Jacob Peterson, Alexander Radulov. They got 3 goals in the last 10 minutes of the game against Phoenix to win that one last night. They're playing really well. Ben's taking a ton of shots. Really cheap on DraftKings, these guys, especially Radulov and Peterson. They're pretty close to the floor for pricing. If you need to pay up somewhere, that's a good cheap line to fit in. I don't know who Dallas is going to go with in net, whether it's Jake Ottinger, as I would assume it would be with Holtby playing last game. But both of them are playing pretty well right now. It's a pretty even competition for the net. Doesn't really make a difference to me either way who they play, with both of them playing pretty well. I don't have a strong lean on this game. I just think it's going to be a really entertaining, good game to watch. So I'll probably sit this one out from a betting perspective unless the Dallas side gets kind of closer to minus or plus 130, plus 125. Then I will consider after seeing who's starting in net for both teams. I assume Robin Lehner for Vegas. But once I get all that finalized info, I might lean towards the Dallas Stars if it gets closer to plus 130. So really, it's a simple 4-game slate. Nothing to overthink. The late game's the marquee matchup with two really strong teams. But there's storylines and excitement in every game. There's no duds on the slate. You got the new coaches in Philly and Vancouver. You got Giroux. I think is going to have a really strong game. He had a strong game last time out. Offense all over the Colorado-New York game. Bergeron back for Boston. Bruce Boudreau behind the bench for Vancouver. And then, of course, this late game with Dallas and Vegas. Really exciting night of hockey on tap. Hope it's a good one. Thank you, as always, for watching. As per usual, we have Jake and DJ to take you through the rest of the week here on Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets. We'll see you again tomorrow, and I personally will see you guys again next Tuesday. Thank you.